Britain and Australia have always been the closest of allies, and they're about to get even closer. Britain is going to allow Australia to place diplomats inside 12 of its embassies in Africa. The British Foreign Secretary William Hague is in Australia for meetings with government ministers. He's one of the most powerful figures in global affairs, and he joined me in the studio to discuss some of the challenges facing the world. William Hague, lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
You said in a speech today that Britain is looking east as never before in modern times. Britain will open another 8 diplomatic posts in Asia in the next couple of years. Why this new focus?
Well, this is heavily driven by trade, by the need to expand trade in the world. Britain needs that. Australia needs that all the time. And some of the fastest growing economies in the world are in the Asia-Pacific region. Australia benefits from that greatly, and we want Britain to be able to benefit from that too. So I think that's part of adapting to the 21st century. But it's another thing as well, which is there are more centres of decision-making in the world than ever before. And we've got to keep up with that, not think the world is just a few blocks and you only need to know a few phone numbers. There are more countries, more societies that feel they should have an influence on world events than ever before, and we have to be physically present in them. What
are you talking about in your meetings here in Australia?
Well, I'm talking about further increasing the cooperation, the 21st century partnership between Britain and Australia. It's very different from the old relationship, but it's a very valuable one. We can do more together on cyber security, the security of the internet, to protect individuals and businesses in that very important domain. We can do more together to help each other diplomatically. Australia is on the UN Security Council for the next 2 years. Britain is a permanent member. So what we are agreeing is that we will open up our embassies in Africa, our embassies, for Australian diplomats to use them and to be able to do their business during the UN Security Council period. And the other thing is to expand our trade, our mutual prosperity. We are the 6th largest trading partner of Australia. So the success of both economies matters to the citizens of both countries.
One of the things the two nations have in common is that we both have troops in Afghanistan and that we're both planning to withdraw more troops. But the reality is, isn't it, that Afghan security forces are nowhere near ready to take over security of their own country?
Well, most of Afghanistan is already the security in most of Afghanistan is already being handled by the Afghan security forces. So increasingly we are moving to a training and mentoring role rather than our troops bearing the full burden of the frontline work. Now, yes, at the end of when we come to the end of 2014, we will be out of that combat role and with troops in nothing like the numbers then. Now, that puts a great emphasis, great responsibility on the Afghan forces, but we're committed to support them financially. We in the UK are going to lead the Officer Training Academy, so we can still help Afghanistan in many ways. But the whole point of this has been for Afghans to be able to run their own affairs without presenting a danger to the rest of the world, and that means there has to come a point when they are running and looking after their own affairs.
But 12 British soldiers, I think, this year have been killed in insider attacks in Afghanistan. That doesn't exactly show an Afghan security force that's functional.
These are tragic events, but they shouldn't change the overall strategic picture in Afghanistan. The Afghan security forces, taking the army and the police together, are more than 300,000 strong. So those are the sorts of numbers that we have trained, and many of those are performing well in operations against the Taliban and keeping their own citizens secure.
Well, what do you say to the suggestion that the US and the UK and Australia aren't withdrawing because Afghanistan's ready to look after its own security? It's more a case that the West realises there's nothing more to be gained by staying.
No, it is because they are ready. And if we didn't set a date, it is an unusual thing, of course, in a conflict to set a date and say we're going by then. But if we didn't set a date, then there's no knowing when that date would ever come. There has to be a moment when you say to Afghans, you are now responsible in town X or province Y for your own security and administration. And if we didn't do that, I don't think that moment would ever come when they were ready to do it. So it seems a bit arbitrary, but it is an essential part of this process.
Well, political leaders used to tell us that they couldn't set a date because it would give succor to the Taliban and give them encouragement to just hold on until the departure date.
Well, thankfully, it is a general truth. There is no single rule for international, as I well know, as Foreign Secretary, for international situations. This is an unusual one, and we have been in Afghanistan a long time. We've done an enormous amount for the people of Afghanistan, and we'll still do an enormous amount, as I've mentioned, in many different ways. But now that the Afghans will have security forces more than 300,000 strong, which by any international standards is a very large military force, then they must be able to look after their own security.
I'd like to whip around a grab bag of international issues, if I may. On Syria, you've previously said that the departure of President Bashar al-Assad is inevitable. Will Britain provide military support to the Syrian opposition?
Well, we're not ruling anything out. This is a still deteriorating situation, unbelievably, in a conflict where about 60,000 people have died. At the moment, this coming year looks even worse than the last 2 years. In that situation, we can't rule out any option, but of course, there are many dangers and difficulties in sending arms into such a conflict. That's not been our approach in any of the conflicts in the Middle East. It's not our approach now, at this moment. We haven't